Hello, everyone. This is our first meeting of the spring quarter, and we're going to start off with an intro to deformers and just that kind of area of things. So, Roman, if you'd like to take it away for a while.
Yeah, sure thing. So, what are deformers? A deformer creates a deformation, like it says, an effect on any deformable object that is comprised of vertices, whether polygonal, NURB, CVs, or lattice points. Deformers allow for additional and/or situational deformations needed that cannot be achieved with only skin weighting on a rig. They can also be used for quick deformations, sometimes even with little to no effort to get the deformations you need. And they're often used in modeling, rigging, animation, and character effects pipelines. And so, what applications do they have? They can create additional shapes that can't be achieved by skin weighting. They can be used as quick rigs that can be animated if the object doesn't really have a rig yet. And they can be used for corrective deformations in animations as like a quick fix. And so the types of deformers can be found under the deformation menu of the rigging tab. And the most commonly used ones are blend shape, lattice, and cluster. But there's some other deformations that can help out with smaller things like delta mush, nonlinear deformers that consist of bend deformers, wave deformers, sine, cosine, and there's just a whole bunch of them. And they can all be used for specific things. So nonlinear deformers, what are they? Nonlinear deformers comprise of several different options that allow for you to bend and curve the object in a flexible manner. Each type produces a different shape along a line, and the geometry will deform according to it and its attributes. And some of the nonlinear options include bend, which just bends an object around a circular arc. Flare, a flare will taper an object, so it's kind of like a way to think of it is kind of like a triangle shape somewhat, where it's like one side gets pinched down, the other side kind of opens up. Sine and cosine curves an object into sine waves. Squash stretches and squashes an object. Twist will twist an object, and wave creates a circular ripples on an object.
Awesome. And in this example, it's just an example of the bend and the sine deformer. The bend, yeah, because like it's kind of hard to see on a sphere, but yeah, this is the sine deformer where it's kind of bending it out into sine arc. Um, Afterwards, there is a cluster. You can select a series of vertices, and you can just make basically one cluster handle that allows you to manipulate and move around that chunk of geometry or a CD, for example. Um, they're very handy for just kind of a quick uh, fix on a certain deformation if you wanted to do that. Next, we have the lattice. A lattice is basically a low-res cage or box that allows you to deform a higher resolution mesh. This is just because my default settings were a bit high for the cage, so that's why the cage is a lot of high poly. But you can basically make a 1 by 1 cube and have like a point at each edge of the box and move around the just get a good general deformation on a certain object. You can determine the amount of points you have in a lattice, but you have to establish that before deforming with the lattice. You can change it, but the changing of it can cause some funky deformations. It's kind of like if you still have the history on like a polysphere, and you already started deforming it, and then you try to change how many edge loops are on it or something like that. As you move the lattice points, the vertices in that area of the object inside the lattice will deform accordingly, and it can have a pretty smooth and nice fall off of it. They're very handy for getting that kind of like for getting a broad and precise type of deformation on your object. It's great for modeling, but also animation. Um, Next is a wrap deformer. A wrap deformer allows you to wrap one geometry to another, and the first geometry tries to follow the deformations of the second one as much as possible based on the distances between vertices. It can be used to make a low-res object manipulate to a higher resolution object, and it's also useful for attaching other geometry without having to mess with skin weights. For example, like if you had a character with a belt on, you could just attach the belt to the pants with like a wrap deformer, or in this case, the cube to the sphere. So like it'll not only follow it as if it was like constrained to it, but it also follows it as if it was like attached to it with like a geometry constraint. So it's really handy in that way. But Dara, if you'd like to wrap it up from here.
Absolutely. So delta mush, this deformer essentially smooths out the mesh and is particularly useful for kind of filtering out deformation artifacts. So it'll tend to deform the model in a way that keeps it close to the original rest pose of the geometry. And you tend to use delta mush kind of like after your deformers or like on top of other things. And it can be used in like a variety of workflows like smoothing out simulation or like post corrections. Um, I've used I've personally only really used delta mush for like simulation and like preventing like pinching when it comes to collisions. Also, I've seen it used for skinning pipelines, and like basically it keeps a semblance of your original shape on top of the deformations from skinning. So, yes. And then we probably won't cover like all of the deformers because there's just so many in Maya. But some other notable ones are like tension, which simulates like surface tension without squashing and stretching the surface too much. Then there's also shrink wrap, which lets you project a poly object onto the surface of another object. Wire deformers, so like there's kind of like an influence wire and a base wire, kind of like lattices where you have like a base and then the lattice, and then the deformation occurs according to like the distance between these two wires. Then you also have soft modification, which is kind of similar to like using a cluster but has more of a fall off, and jiggle, which kind of makes your object like jello in a way, but it's like really difficult to control, so not the best. And then whenever you're using deformers, you can also kind of influence the way that it is like that it's on your object. So like you can do some weight painting on it like you would for like skinning. So with weight painting, this kind of determines how your deformer is influencing your object and how much influence that it would have on it. And you can access weight paints by selecting on the deform object and going to like the paint menu, and this will let you access painting weights for like the deformers that you apply to the object. So yeah, that's kind of it for like a brief lecture on deformers. So if you have any questions or would like us to demonstrate any of these, please let us know.
So, what's your favorite deformer?
What's my favorite deformer?
No, that's the most important question of it, though.
I've been pretty fond of lattices lately. I think I say this because like on all senior film, mine and Brandon's pirate lesson, our director Sophia is a huge lattice fiend, and I feel like I've been converted. I basically kind of love lattices now.
Yeah, I think our director converted a lot of our animation team to just love lattices. They're really handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't messed with them enough, but
Mm.
yeah, they look really enticing.
They're
Try it
very
out.
nice because they kind of they're great because you can also skin joints to the various lattice points, so you could create like a bunch of controls that'll manipulate that cage. So it can kind of get
Mm-hmm.
so it's really handy because you can actually build a rig about it, or you could just be lazy and attach a lattice to just some geometry, and you can key the points. It's not as clean as just as making controls, but you can do it if you need a quick rig. It's really handy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to mess around with that. Yeah, with the combining it with joints. That sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah. And we use a lot of lattices on our phone because we do a lot of like cartoony animation. So we use it a lot for like stretching and squashing. Like, in fact, we just like asked Brandon to put lattices on like all of his rigs.
Yeah.
Brandon, what's your favorite
Oh God.
deformer?
I'd say it's lattice or sign. I just use one of those two whenever I'm in like a pinch. It's just like the sign's very good because it's pretty great for. I had to animate seaweed for a shot one time, and I just attached a bunch of sign deformers to them and animated those because it just kept things pretty in control. So like I didn't have to worry about over animating things. It was really nice. And then lattices are just great because they can just you can pretty much do anything with them.
Mm-hmm.
What are your least favorite deformers and why?
Jiggle, because it's hard to control.
What'd you say, James?
Tension. The fucking tension deformer.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
That piece of shit. Because like, oh, it could works, like, and then it doesn't. You know, like, great, gotta fix everything else.
James is out here for tension's blood.
Good
Mason,
to know
do
that
you
I
have
don't
a-
even have to bother messing with that.
Yeah, don't even have it in any of your pipelines. Whoever uses it is a fucking buffoon.
Man.
Jesus.
Roasted.
Hey Mason, do you have any insight on this? Like favorite deformers or least favorite? Just anything to do with that?
Yeah.
I've got to say, my favorite deformers are blend shapes. I use them all the time for everything.
That's very fair.
That's true.
I have to
Least
agree with that.
favorite.
Good
I
pick.
like them with
Yeah.
plugins.
Least favorite.
I don't like
Least
vanilla
favorite.
blend shapes.
I can't say that I hate the tension deformer. I've used it before when I'm
Ooh,
sculpting blend shapes to like get skin sliding.
fight time.
Yeah. It's not my favorite, but I've used it before.
You got a hot take.
I guess
here.
I really hate fixing it. That's my problem.
Yeah, that's why I use it on blend shapes, because then you don't have to worry about it. Like you get it, you get a pose, and then you
Oh
delete
well,
it.
that's true. Okay,
At least that's what I do with it. That's what one of
I
my
guess that
professors
makes
does.
sense, huh?
But least
Oh.
favorite,
Yeah.
I think I'd have to say I have a love-hate relationship with wrap deformers, where they're very convenient sometimes, and then they're a pain in the ass most of the time.
2020 has a
with that.
proximity wrap.
Yeah,
It's like a weird parent constraint. I haven't played around with it enough, but like I've tried it with some wings and stuff. It's pretty. It can be handy, but then it can't. I don't know. It's really weird.
yeah. I just downloaded 2022, and I've been goofing around with it, and there's a lot of cool stuff in there.
I heard they changed the scripting though. It's
They
completely
did.
changed. or whatever.
It is now Python 3 instead of Python 2, which needed to happen for a while.
Oh,
Yeah.
Whoa.
so they caught up.
They finally caught up. They skipped ahead a year and finally caught up.
But that's a shame for anyone who's been learning too.
There's not too much different. There's like
Yeah,
a
I
couple
guess.
really annoying things that I've had to be like fixing on for films. I told people not to use 2022 yet because I don't want to rewrite all of my scripts for those.
All I know is that I saw like a post from like Josh Sobel on like LinkedIn. He's like, "Hey, yeah, here's a fair warning. You can't use our scripts in 2022 because we have to go in and manually change all our scripts."
I'm kind of learning Python right now. Would it just be good to just like download my 2022 and just start learning that instead?
I'd say so. It's honestly, it's the same thing. They added like a couple different things because like the different Python versions, there's different ways that it works, but it's the same concept and like same general thing. The one that I am struggling with the most is that now when you do print, you have to have parentheses around it.
Oh.
Yeah, which is a yikes. Because I am sloppy and I don't put parentheses around it most of the time. But oh well.
But yeah, any other questions about deformers?
About which deformer do you feel the most neutral? Okay, no, I take that back. I take that
Neutral?
back.
Very
Delta mush.
okay. Yeah, Delta Mush,
It
probably.
either solves your problems or it doesn't.
I'm
Pretty
pretty
much.
partial to Delta Mush. It's actually one of my favorites. You know, you just got
Ooh.
skinning issues. You know, just
I mean, you
smooth it
can
out with
bake.
some
I mean, you
Delta
can
Mush.
bake you can bake it into the regular skin.
Yeah, I find that sometimes it doesn't like bake
Yeah,
correctly, and then
it
you still
tends to
have to like
break
go
though.
fix the
Yeah.
skinning. But like, I like to use Delta Mush and like paint weights on it, so you can like have it heavier in some areas and like just more depending on the skinning in other areas.
Yeah.